All right, so this is going to cover the rest of Chapter 1 of Fundamentals of English Grammar. So Chapter 1, Present Time, Lesson 3. This lesson talks about spelling, time words, and verbs that don't use ing. So let's choose the correct verbs here. So should it be we always take or we take always? The answer is going to be we always take a grammar test on Friday. So should it be Jeff never is or is never? So it's going to be is never. Jeff is never on time to class. So our teacher doesn't ever or doesn't never arrive late. In this one, it's going to be doesn't ever. Should it be Lily has or is having a new haircut? It's going to be Lily has a new haircut. So should it be I am liking her haircut? It's going to be I like her haircut. And should it be it looks or is looking very nice? It's going to be it looks very nice. So frequency adverbs are words such as always, usually, sometimes, and never. Use frequency adverbs with the simple present tense to tell how often something happens. These adverbs usually go in the middle of the sentence. So look at the example. Isadore usually goes to the gym before work. The frequency adverb usually comes after the subject and before the verb. So Isadore is the subject, usually is the frequency adverb, and the simple present tense verb is goes. And the exception here we'll see shortly. So here's some more examples. She always arrives at work on time. She often eats lunch in the office. She occasionally skips lunch. Sometimes she goes out to lunch with her coworkers. Notice that the frequency adverb is at the beginning of the sentence in this example. Frequency adverbs go after the verb to be. So look at this example. He is never late rather than he never is late. With the verb to be, the frequency adverb is going to come afterward. She is generally home around 6 o'clock. So again, generally is a frequency adverb, and it comes after the form of the verb to be, which is. In questions, frequency adverbs usually go immediately after the subject. Look at the examples. Is the weather usually nice in Taos, New Mexico? Is it always warm? Does it sometimes rain? Does it ever snow? Notice in all of these, the frequency adverb going the same place after the subject. In this case, it's weather, in this case, it, and in these other ones, it as well, regardless of whether the verb is or does, or are or do. So let's look at the meaning of ever and never. So not plus ever means never. For example, do you eat mushrooms? No, I never eat mushrooms. Or I don't ever eat mushrooms. So ever and never mean something different. Ever by itself has a different meaning than never, because never means not plus ever. Okay, so sorry about that, but we're back in. So let's review. Frequency adverbs usually go in the middle of the sentence. For most verbs, the frequency adverb goes between the subject and the verb in statements. So I never eat mushrooms. Frequency adverbs go after the verb to be. The baby is usually happy. For questions, the frequency adverb usually goes immediately after the subject. So is it always warm? Remember that this doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether the verb is or does in this case. So now let's take a look at verbs that are not usually progressive. These verbs are also called non-action or stative verbs. They express a situation, not an action. Look at chart 1-6 in your textbook for a list of the verbs not usually used in the progressive. Let's look at some examples. So she knows all of the words to this song. Janice wants to go to Hawaii. Do you hear the bird in the sky? So these are some of there's some verbs that have both a non-progressive and a progressive meaning. You can look at this chart in your book. Let's look at a few examples. My brother is very funny. Jason is being mean right now. John has a dog. I'm having a bad day. Do you see that fox? I am seeing a doctor today. So keep in mind that some of these words can be used both as stative and as action, but their meaning is not the same. For example, in the example that we had where you saw, do you see the fox? This is talking about vision, right? So normally words that are related to the senses are non-action. But when you say I am seeing, it means you're visiting, right? So it has a slightly different meaning. I am seeing could also be used for dating, right? So in this case, it has a different meaning than the senses. So let's look at this one. We want to complete the sentence and use the adverbs and the correct form of the verb to be. We also need to keep in mind the correct word order. So just as a review, remember that in statements, frequency adverbs come after most verbs. Come before most verbs, between the subject and the verb. The only exception is with the verb to be, in which they come after the verb to be. So in this one, we see that the frequency adverb is always, and the verb is reply. So this is not the verb to be. So this should be always replies, because the frequency adverb comes between the subject, Max, and the verb replies. In this next one, so my teachers, let's take a look here at the verbs. The adverb is rarely, and the verb is be. So remember, with the verb to be, we need to put it after the verb to be. So my teachers are rarely late for class. Let's take a look at this one. So here we're doing a question. So when we are doing a question, we want to, the frequency adverb goes after the subject, and then the verb goes after the frequency verb. Remember that whenever we're making a question, and remember with these frequency adverbs, we're using them with the simple present tense. So whenever we make a question with the simple present tense, we need to start the question with either do or does, depending on what the subject is. So in this case, it should be, does Sarah usually play soccer on the weekends? So here, if we take a look at it, the main verb is have. So it should be, Henry never has time to study in the evenings. If we look at this one, the main verb is snow, right? That can be confusing because we think of it as a noun. But this one, remember, we're making it negative, so we're going to have to use do or does. So it's going to be, it doesn't ever snow in Miami, right? So let's take a look at these ones. Again, we're comparing the simple present and the present progressive. We need to keep in mind a couple of different things. One thing, in these examples, we want to differentiate between the action form and the non-action form of the verb. So in this one, we have. So have, when it means ownership, is a non-action verb. When it is describing an experience, it's an action verb. So in this one, we're not looking for clues like everyday or habitual activity and right now. We're just looking at these verbs. So in this one, it should be Tom has a new car because we're talking about ownership, and that's non-action. So again, think is one of those that can be both. When it's think means believe, it's non-action. When it is about planning or many thoughts that are going on in your head, it is action. So in this one, it should be Allison is thinking about her next vacation because it's this planning or many thoughts going on in the head. So again, here we have this have. We said that if it means ownership, it's non-action. When it's talking about an experience, it is action. So could you help me? I am having trouble with this homework, right? This is an action form. So here, when we're talking just about, well, actually, here is only non-action. There isn't an action form of it. So this one should be easy. So it should be, do you hear that noise? What is that? Here we look at see and seeing. We have two forms. So see, when we're talking about visually, like what is in front of us, what do we see? That's non-action. When we're talking about visiting or dating, then it can be action. So Maya isn't here right now. She is seeing an advisor about her schedule. So again, here look can have two forms. When we talk about look, if we're talking about how it appears, right? When we look at it with our eyes, it's non-action. But when we're talking about the activity of trying to find something, it can be action. So with no is a word that is never in the progressive, right? This is just a non-action verb. Sorry, sort of gave it away there, but it's always non-action. So first one should be, I am looking for my keys. I don't know where they are, because it's non-action. Okay, so for more practice, you can go refer back to your book and look at the exercises for 1-4 to 1-6.